Good morning, friends. Let us dive into another important case law, that is S.R Mumbai versus Union of India of 1994. Friends, this case is a landmark judgment in Indian constitutional law that clarified the scope and limits of president power to impose presidential rule in states under Article 356 of the Indian Constitution. It is one of the most significant decisions in promoting federalism and preventing the misuse of central authority over state governments. Background of the case: S.R Bommai, the Chief Minister of Karnataka, was dismissed in 1989 when his government was accused of losing its majority in the assembly. The governor recommended presidential rule under Article 356 and the president dissolved the state assembly without allowing Mumbai to prove his majority on the floor of the House. Similar instances of alleged misuse of Article 356 occurred in states like Nagaland, Meghalaya, and Rajasthan, leading to the consolidated challenge before the Honorable Supreme Court. S.R Moai and others argued that dismissal of their government was unconstitutional, arbitrary, and violative of democratic principles. So issues were in the case were scope of Article 356. What are the circumstances under which the president can impose president rule in the state? Judicial review. Is the president's decision under Article 356 subject to judicial review? Role of floor test. Should a governor's report be considered sufficient to dismiss a state government, or should the majority of the government be tested in the assembly? The Honorable Supreme Court gave its judgment. The case was decided by a nine-judge bench, constitutional bench of the Supreme Court in 1994. The court laid down significant principles for the imposition of president's rule and upheld the federal structure of the Constitution. So, friends, the key rulings were: judicial review of Article 356. The court ruled that the imposition of president's rule is subject to judicial review. The president's satisfaction under Article 356 is not immune from scrutiny. If the proclamation is found to be malified, arbitrary, or based on irrelevant considerations, the court can strike it down. Floor test is crucial. The court emphasized that the proper method to test the majority of the government is on the floor of the Legislative Assembly. The governor cannot assume or decide that a government has lost its majority. This must be tested in the Assembly. Limits on dissolution of state assembly. The court held that state assemblies cannot be dissolved before parliamentary approval of the presidential proclamation under Article 356. Federalism strengthened. The court reinforced that India's federal structure is a basic feature of the Constitution, and Article 356 should be used sparingly to respect the autonomy of the state government. Secularism as a ground for presidential rule. The court recognized that a state government violating the principles of secularism could be a valid ground for invoking Article 356. If a state government acts against secular principles, it may justify central intervention. So, friends, the impact of the judgment is curbing misuse of Article 356. The judgment significantly limited the arbitrary use of Article 356, which had been frequently misused to dismiss opposition-led state governments, strengthening federalism. By restricting central overreach and promoting judicial scrutiny, the ruling strengthened the federal structure of the India's governance. Promoting democracy, the emphasis on the floor test ensured that the will of the people, as represented by elected legislators, is respected in determining the majority. Judicial oversight. The decision highlighted the importance of judicial review in safeguarding democracy and preventing abuse of executive power. Friends, there were also criticism. First one was delayed justice. Critics argue that judicial process often takes time, which can render the relief ineffective, as dismissed governments may already be out of power by the time a judgment is delivered. ambiguities in application. Despite the guidelines, the interpretation of the governor's role and scope of judicial review in specific cases remains contentious. So, friends, net conclusion is the S.R Moy case is a milestone in Indian constitutional jurisprudence, emphasizing the principles of federalism, democracy, and judicial oversight. By limiting the misuse of Article 356 and establishing safeguard, the judgment has become a cornerstone in the protection of India's democratic fabric and autonomy of state governments. That's all. God bless you all. See you again.